Eurofighter mains, rejoice. The Eurofighter has finally gotten a CAPTOR-M radar buff. And a kind of, I guess it's subjective, but semi-substantial buff as well. I apologize for the Mirage kills at the bottom left. I realized I left my one of my overlays up for my recording from one of the streams, doing Mirage only streams, so just ignore that. But that's right, the Eurofighter's radar has been buffed pretty much across the board. There has been lock strength increases, there's been roll azimuth changes, and there's been probably the most important part, scope scale adjustments. Now there are 4 different scope scales. I'll put them up on the screen. We can kind of go through them real quick. Narrow's kind of a mixed bag. It's now 15 by 13, but it went from 2 passes to 6 passes. And what that means is you now see the scan period went from 0.6 seconds to about 1.3. So it's not as fast of a return, but objectively it's still very fast, and it covers a substantial more amount of area. This one's labeled as wide. I'm going to call it medium wide because we still have 140 by 4. But this is essentially just a smaller version of 140 by 4 with a faster return, right? And then we have a actual medium 30 by 8, which is half of the width, but twice of the height of the 60 by 4, right? This is kind of a real medium with still a 1.7 second return. And then obviously we still have the 140 by 4, the super giga wide, very short scan that you either love or you hate. It's still here. It hasn't gone anywhere. So now we have a total of 4 scope scales that you have to cycle through. Now, a buff that I don't have a 100% understanding on is going to be the roll and pitch stabilization limits. But from what I understand, the roll stabilization limit has gone to 180 degrees. So you can see here, if you lock up a target and pull them off to your side, as long as they're still kind of level with your nose up to 60 degrees up or down, and you do a full 180 degree turn, it'll keep them locked stable. I'm not sure how it behaved before, I'm not gonna lie. So I'm assuming this is, I'm not talking out my ass here. If I am, please somebody correct me in the comments. But it still feels good. Now, the Iris T did get nerfed. I know the German doesn't have the Iris T, but this is a substantial nerf. It went from 90 degrees off bore, matching the radar of 70 degrees. This is a very big deal. This means that you can't keep targets locked over your shoulder 90 degrees with the IR after you switch from PD to IR to maintain a lock. This is significant. While this isn't some crazy game-defining meta that the Eurofighter had before, I mean, the AIM-120 has gimbal limits, right? It's not like the Mica on the Rafale where you can just launch it over your shoulder with a mem lock. That's kind of the advantage of the Rafale with its 90-degree plus Mica. So this is more of we're losing a very good nice-to-have. So if you go into the defense and you need to keep somebody locked up because you're doing a vertical notch or whatever, and you lose them because now your radar, you see what I'm getting at? So it is substantial for those that have used it that way before, so me. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. This is kind of what I'm gonna talk about with this update and this buff slash nerf, is it's kind of subjective. Yes, the radar got buffed pretty substantially, but the Iris T got nerfed pretty substantially as well. Now, if you were of the opinion that the Eurofighter's radar was borderline unusable, the scope scales were worthless, the Su-27SM had a better radar and all this stuff, then you're probably rejoicing. And I mean, if you're flying a German Eurofighter, you're happy no matter what. But I was always of the opinion that the radar on the Eurofighter was pretty fine. Like, it wasn't the best of the best, but I mean, it was 100% totally usable. Yeah, the scope scales weren't great, but I mean, they were usable, and the plane is the best dogfighter in the game, so like, it has so many other things going for it other than its radar. It didn't really bother me. Now, with that being said, I have always talked in the context of flying a Eurofighter that has Iris T, and the German Eurofighter is the most played Eurofighter in the game. So I do need to take a step back, get off my high horse, and I do understand that not having Iris T I could understand why people would dislike this radar so much. Because I use Iris T quite a bit. I mean, I use Iris T to get initial locks on almost anything if I'm using HMS. If they're close enough for me to use HMS, I'm going to lock them up with Iris T first because it's a more consistent lock and it doesn't ping your RWR. And then I'll switch to radar and then I'll launch and then either switch back or keep them in radar. I don't know. But not being able to have that ability, I recognize the fact that is significant. That is a significant thing to not have. So objectively speaking, this buff is a wide benefit across the board for the majority of players. I am in the minority here, and I recognize that. I personally would rather still have the scope scales of before with a 90-degree off-bore, over-the-shoulder Iris T. Again, I understand the AIM-120 doesn't even have the ability to launch from MEM or 90 degrees, but it's so ingrained in my playstyle, and it's such a nice to have that I really value that. But again, I recognize the majority of players don't even have Iris T on this thing. So I'm going to get off this tangent. This is a good buff across the board that's going to benefit a very large amount of players. And I am personally okay with that. If my playstyle has to change ever so slightly, then that's fine. And the scope scales we got are pretty good. I mean, they're not the best in the world, but they're way better than what we had, that's for sure. The 15 by 13 is probably my favorite. I mean, it's the most narrow, but it's almost a perfect box square. And so it's a pretty, it just kind of makes sense when you're using it. And then you got the 30 by 8, which is, I mean, it's a great search one. I mean, it covers a very large amount of space, and it's a 1.7 second return. And then, I mean, everything else is very quick, except for the 140 by 4. I'm not sure many people are even going to use that thing anymore. I think, honestly, my biggest complaint about this nerf slash buff is now I have 4 radar modes to cycle through it, and that's probably going to get a little annoying. But yeah, I mean, that's really it. Kind of short and sweet. That's the down and dirty. Again, I mean, this is a buff across the board that is going to benefit a very large amount of players. And I think we need to accept that eventually when the Eurofighter gets lock on after launch, you know, no gimbal limit missiles, I feel like we're going to maybe miss that 90-degree Iris T for sure, having flown the Rafale. It's a pretty good benefit to have. But, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the majority of players don't have Iris T. So, anyways, that's all I got. That's the buff. The Eurofighter is still just as good as it always was. It's still probably the second best plane in the game. But anyways, that's it for this one. Pretty short and simple. If you guys like the content, please obviously drop a like, comment down below your thoughts on it. If I got something wrong, please correct me. And if you guys like this kind of informative discussion stuff, or you enjoy my live streams, if you don't even know I live stream, be sure to subscribe. That's obviously the best way to know when I do so. Join the Discord, link to that in the description. And that's all I got. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.